The hum of the ventilation system was the only thing keeping Noah Bennett from unraveling entirely. Well, that, and his absolute refusal to admit how much his hands were shaking under the conference table. For someone who claimed to be a maintenance engineer, he was way too good at dismantling peace negotiations just by existing. Across the table, a dozen Zerethian officials sat stiff-backed, their polished silver attire shimmering faintly under the sterile light panels. Their expressions were unreadable, save for the faintest narrowing of eyes when Noah had introduced himself with the wrong inflection in their language. Apparently, calling oneself a highly flammable reproductive tool wasn't a great diplomatic icebreaker. But none of that compared to the woman seated at the center, the alien queen herself. Lyra of Zerethian, tall, impossibly poised, with hair like molten gold cascading down her back, ivory skin so flawless it looked sculpted, and long, tapering ears that curved elegantly beyond the silken hood of her ceremonial cloak. She looked human, nearly, but only in the way a wolf might look like a dog. Beautiful, dangerous, and carrying an expression so calm it made Noah's spine itch. He hadn't meant to catch her attention. Hell, he hadn't meant to even be in the same room as her. But when the translation module glitched mid-sentence, garbling the peace treaty into what Noah could only assume was a declaration of interstellar nudity, he'd panicked. His frantic attempts to repair the device under the table had resulted in a minor electrical fire, a toppled pitcher of water, and somehow shorting out the artificial gravity for approximately 6 humiliating seconds. The dignitaries had floated. The queen had not. She'd merely arched a single, infuriatingly perfect eyebrow as Noah clung upside down to the table leg like an idiot. That was 3 hours ago. Now, the official talks had ended, temporary ceasefire signed, and the crew of the diplomatic vessel scattered to their quarters, leaving Noah alone in his bunk with a pounding headache and a very real desire to eject himself into the nearest star. He lay flat on the narrow mattress, staring at the faint glow of the environmental control panel. Sleep evaded him, tangled in knots of embarrassment, nerves, and the quiet, creeping realization that he'd probably humiliated humanity in front of their most powerful interstellar ally. The door chimed. Noah flinched upright, nearly bashing his head on the bunk above. Yeah! The door slid open with a hiss, revealing none other than Queen Lyra herself, standing in the threshold like the galaxy's most alarming sleep paralysis demon. She had ditched the formal attire. Instead, she wore soft, woven fabric that clung gently to her frame, shimmering faintly in the low light. Her long ears twitched with faint amusement as her sharp, silver-blue eyes roamed the cramped quarters. "Your quarters are small," she observed, stepping inside without invitation. Her voice held that lilting, melodic accent that made even insults sound poetic. Noah scrambled upright, heart in his throat. Yeah, standard issue. Sorry, I wasn't expecting." "You appeared unsettled." "During the assembly," she continued, ignoring his flailing words entirely. She studied him with the intensity of a scientist dissecting a specimen. "Is this your resting period?" "Technically," Noah replied, trying and failing to sound casual. "Or my existential crisis period, depending how you frame it." Lyra's expression didn't shift, but the corners of her mouth curved ever so slightly. Noah wasn't sure if that was good or if he was about to be vaporized. "Your emotional distress is inefficient," she stated plainly, approaching the bed. Her presence filled the tiny space like static charge. "Sleep recalibrates cognitive processing. I will assist." Before Noah could decipher that statement, she gracefully slid onto the narrow mattress beside him, legs folding neatly, her golden hair pooling across the sheets like liquid sunlight. "I, assist? What does that mean?" "You invited me," Lyra replied matter-of-factly, adjusting her posture until they were practically shoulder to shoulder. "You said, would someone just sleep beside me for once? I have agreed." Noah's brain blue-screened. No, that was me, talking to myself. It was rhetorical. People say things like that when they're stressed. And not literal. Lyra tilted her head, golden strands brushing against her cheek. Zerethian interprets such requests sincerely. It is a gesture of vulnerability. To decline would be impolite. He opened his mouth, closed it, considered flinging himself out the airlock again. But Lyra had already settled beside him, eyes closed, long ears twitching faintly as if scanning for threats even in rest. Despite every neuron in his brain firing alarms, a strange, unexpected calm settled over him. So, just sleep, he clarified weakly. Yes, Lyra confirmed without opening her eyes. Unless you intend additional activities customary to Earth mating rituals, in which case. Nope, just sleep's great. Perfect. Outstanding. Noah interrupted, face burning so fiercely, he could probably power the ship's auxiliary engines. Silence settled. The faint hum of the ship's systems filled the space. Her presence, oddly enough, radiated warmth, not just physically, but something intangible. The kind of steady, unwavering calm he'd spent years lacking. After a moment, her voice murmured softly, just above a whisper, almost amused. I will not sleep apart again. Noah's breath caught, and just like that, his simple, stressed-out life took a sharp, irreversible turn into the kind of absurdity that only happens when you accidentally share a bed with an alien queen. Noah awoke to the faint, unfamiliar sensation of being observed. His brain, still fogged with half-sleep, registered a subtle warmth beside him before he even opened his eyes. The mattress dipped slightly under another presence, and his arm, traitorous limb that it was, had somehow wandered across unfamiliar terrain. The terrain in question was the smooth curve of Queen Lyra's waist. Panic slammed into him like a malfunctioning gravity stabilizer. His eyes snapped open, locking immediately onto the alien queen lying beside him. Lyra's silver-blue gaze met his, utterly calm, utterly unbothered, as if waking up in a cramped bunk beside a panicked human engineer was an everyday diplomatic procedure. Your heartbeat increased significantly upon waking, she observed, voice soft but tinged with faint amusement. Possible cardiac distress? Noah jerked his arm back as if electrocuted, nearly flipping himself off the bed in the process. Possible cardiac embarrassment, thanks. You're still here. Lyra tilted her head, golden hair spilling across the pillow like molten sunlight. I stated my intention to not sleep apart again. You consented. I what? I didn't. That wasn't legally binding. Noah sputtered, scrambling upright. His hair stood at odd angles, and his uniform shirt had ridden up in his sleep, making him look more like a disheveled cadet than a representative of humanity. That was sleep-deprived rambling. People say all kinds of weird things when they're delirious. Doesn't mean they want to wake up spooning alien royalty. Lyra sat up in one fluid motion, her long ears twitching faintly as she regarded him. Zerethian customs differ. An invitation to share rest is a significant expression of trust. To retract it dishonors both parties. Fantastic, Noah muttered, dragging a hand through his hair. I've managed to dishonor myself and humanity before breakfast. New personal record. As if on cue, the door panel chimed, followed by a sharp, metallic voice. Queen Lyra, your presence is requested in the command assembly. Noah's eyes widened. You weren't supposed to be here overnight. Protocol says. Lyra stood, smoothing the soft fabric of her attire, unbothered. I will inform them I engaged in essential interspecies bonding rituals. Interspecies, Noah choked. Can we not phrase it like that? Ever? Her lips curved slightly, the faintest trace of humor in her expression. Your language lacks sufficient nuance. I will adapt. The door hissed open, revealing two Zerethian guards standing rigid, their armor shimmering like molten silver, eyes unreadable behind their visors. They took one look at Lyra stepping out of Noah's bunk and, if possible, their expressions became even more unreadable. Lyra inclined her head gracefully. Proceed. I am prepared. The guards' gazes flicked to Noah, narrowing fractionally. Noah offered a weak, guilty smile that probably looked more like an impending nervous breakdown. Once the door slid shut behind them, Noah collapsed onto the bunk, burying his face in his hands. The whispering hum of the ship's systems filled the silence, punctuated only by his quiet groan of impending doom. 15 minutes later, he regretted leaving his room. The command deck buzzed with activity. Officers and diplomats clustered around holodisplays projecting the ship's trajectory, defense grids, and live broadcasts from a dozen news channels across the galaxy. On every screen, Lyra of Zerethian spotted in human officers' quarters, alliance scandal or cultural exchange. Images looped of Lyra exiting Noah's quarters, flanked by her guards. His own bleary-eyed, sleep-creased face was captured in all its awkward, stunned glory. "Oh, perfect," Noah muttered, sinking lower behind a console. "I've become the galaxy's most tragic reality star." Commander Reyes, a sharp-featured woman with the patience of a malfunctioning AI, approached with the intensity of an oncoming asteroid. "Bennett, explain. Miscommunication, cultural misunderstanding, accidental royal sleepover?" Noah offered weakly, resisting the urge to hyperventilate into a coolant vent. Reyes pinched the bridge of her nose. "Do you realize the diplomatic chaos you've ignited?" "Yes, thoroughly aware." Noah exhaled slowly, already envisioning the disciplinary reports, the angry debriefings, the intergalactic memes circulating within hours. But before Reyes could launch into a tirade, the holodisplays shifted, revealing Lyra's live address from the assembly hall. The alien queen stood tall, serene as ever, her golden hair cascading down her back, long ears subtly angled as she addressed both human and Zerethian delegates. "I engaged in a voluntary resting ritual with Engineer Bennett," Lyra stated calmly, causing half the room to choke on their drinks. "It symbolizes mutual trust and alliance." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lyra's gaze, impossibly steady, flicked toward the nearest camera, as if piercing directly into Noah's panicked soul. "I have no intention of reversing this arrangement." Noah froze. Commander Reyes groaned audibly. The room erupted in overlapping reactions. Diplomats whispering, officers exchanging horrified glances, and a faint, unmistakable snicker from the tactical crew in the back. Noah's shoulders slumped in resignation. "Well," he muttered, "at least she's committed." In the grand, chaotic theater of intergalactic diplomacy, nothing said unity like accidentally becoming the Queen's permanent cuddle partner. The worst part about becoming the accidental center of a galactic scandal wasn't the diplomatic fallout, the awkward stares, or the endless barrage of Holos with his face plastered beside bold headlines like "Earthling steals alien queen's heart," and possibly her throne. No, the worst part was the paperwork. Noah Bennett sat slumped over his console, drowning beneath a sea of incident reports, alliance protocols, and entirely too many forms that required him to define resting rituals with uncomfortable specificity. Every time he thought he'd finished, another data pad materialized, courtesy of some humorless officer who looked moments away from declaring him a threat to interspecies relations. To his left, Lieutenant Harlow snorted, tapping her own console. "You know, some people start intergalactic incidents with weapons or espionage. You managed it with a sleepover. Impressive." Noah groaned, massaging his temples. "I've always aimed for mediocrity. Guess I overshot." Before Harlow could fire back another quip, the deck's comm system crackled to life. "Engineer Bennett to the observation lounge," came the captain's voice, laced with strained patience. Immediately, Noah's stomach twisted. "Bet that's good news." "Bet you're wrong," Harlow replied with a grin. The observation lounge offered the best view of the sprawling Zerethian fleet stationed alongside their vessel's sleek, crescent-shaped cruisers with shimmering hulls that pulsed faintly against the void. They looked like predators lying in wait, beautiful and absolutely terrifying. At the center of the lounge, surrounded by stiff-backed diplomats and officers, stood Queen Lyra. Noah stepped inside, every molecule of common sense screaming at him to backpedal. But it was too late. Lyra's gaze locked onto him, silver-blue eyes calm as ever, long ears twitching faintly in acknowledgement. "You summoned me?" Noah asked, voice cracking somewhere between bravado and existential dread. Captain Reyes gestured to the holodisplay hovering above the central table. It projected live footage from the Zerethian flagship, specifically, a broadcast of Lyra's latest public statement, where she calmly reiterated her commitment to the human she has chosen as her bonded resting companion. The room collectively stared at Noah. For the record, Noah began weakly. I did not agree to be anyone's bonded resting, whatever that is. Lyra stepped forward, her expression unreadable, but her tone deceptively soft. You expressed distress. You requested comfort. I provided it. That's called basic empathy, not interspecies marriage. Noah hissed under his breath, acutely aware of the dozen diplomats hanging on every word. Lyra's head tilted slightly, golden hair catching the light. On Zerethian, such gestures signify lasting partnership. To rescind them is to imply dishonor. Reyes rubbed her forehead. Bennett, please tell me you didn't dishonor an empire. I sneezed, tripped over a power conduit, and accidentally invited the queen to bed. Does that count? Noah deadpanned. A strangled sound escaped from one of the junior officers, quickly muffled behind a hand. The diplomatic tension in the room coiled tighter, but before it could snap entirely, Lyra's comm device buzzed with an urgent alert. Her serene mask slipped just slightly as she reviewed the incoming data. There has been an incident. Reyes straightened. What kind of incident? An attack. Unauthorized vessel approaching our fleet. Lyra's voice dropped, cool and sharp as blade-edge ice. They claim allegiance to neither Zerethian nor Earth. The hollow display flickered, revealing a jagged, rust-colored ship barreling toward their location. Its design was crude, patchwork, bristling with unfamiliar tech and ominous weapon arrays. Reyes cursed under her breath. Pirates? Mercenaries? Possibly worse, Lyra replied. There are factions who profit from instability. The ship's comms crackled with distorted static before a garbled voice sliced through. Surrender the queen, or your vessel becomes debris. Noah blinked. Wow. Straight to the space threats. Subtle. Lyra's eyes remained fixed on the projection, her posture deceptively calm. I will not comply. Good, Noah muttered. I left my negotiating with terrorists pamphlet in my other uniform. Reyes spun toward tactical. Shields up, weapons online. We're not handing anyone over. As the crew scrambled, Noah found himself beside Lyra, heart hammering, brain screaming, and yet oddly steady. Maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe it was the surreal acceptance that this week couldn't get weirder. You could have chosen literally anyone else for a resting companion, he muttered, fingers dancing across a console to assist with shield calibrations. But no, you had to pick the guy with the chronic bad luck. Lyra's lips curved faintly. I find your bad luck statistically fascinating. Great. Maybe you can explain that to whoever's trying to blast us out of orbit. The attacking vessel's weapons charged, energy signatures flaring across the hollow display. Noah braced for impact, regretting approximately every life choice that led him here. But as the ship's shields rippled and the first salvo collided harmlessly against reinforced plating, Lyra's hand found his, steady, warm, and utterly unshaken. For what it's worth, she murmured. I never intended to sleep apart again. Noah exhaled, the absurdity of the situation nearly eclipsing the danger. Yeah, he replied, squeezing her hand once before diving back into the chaos. I'm starting to believe you. The emergency lights pulsed an eerie amber across the ship's narrow corridors, washing every surface in flickering shadows that did nothing to ease Noah's nerves. His boots slammed against the deck as he sprinted after Lyra, both of them weaving through maintenance tunnels barely wide enough for two people. The main halls were a mess. Security lockdowns, panicked personnel, alarms blaring warnings in 3 languages. The only place left to hide was the guts of the ship itself. This is insane, Noah hissed, ducking beneath an exposed coolant pipe. We should be with the others, not crawling through ventilation shafts like sci-fi raccoons. Lyra moved ahead with practiced ease, ducking under panels, her long ears angling to catch every distant sound. Despite the crisis, her expression remained infuriatingly serene. as if enemy ships threatening their lives was a minor inconvenience, like running out of tea. "You are a high-value target," Lyra stated calmly, pausing to scan the junction ahead. "Remaining with me ensures your safety." "Right?" Noah muttered. "Because nothing says safe like being hunted by pirates while stuck in the spaceship's plumbing." The Zorethian queen pressed her hand to an access panel, and the hatch hissed open, revealing another stretch of maintenance tunnels. She glanced back, golden hair catching the dim light. "Your sarcasm increases under stress. It is oddly consistent." "Yeah, it's called coping. I highly recommend it." They moved quickly, the hum of distant engines and muffled footsteps echoing behind them. Noah's chest tightened with every pulse of the emergency sirens. The attacking vessel had docked, bypassing external defenses. Armed raiders had boarded. Their demands were simple: surrender the queen or face total destruction. Naturally, Lyra had declined. The consequences were now rattling the ship. They reached a small compartment near the ship's structural core, the hum of the reactor vibrating faintly beneath their feet. Lyra sealed the hatch behind them and activated a holographic display, projecting schematics of the ship's current status. "Boarders have breached 3 sectors," she noted, studying the flickering data. "Their objective is me." "Yeah, I caught that part," Noah replied, trying to ignore how tightly his nerves coiled in his stomach. "I'm guessing their negotiation skills don't include group hugs." Lyra's gaze flicked toward him, her expression unreadable. "You remain defiant despite fear. Admirable. It's not bravery. It's sheer disbelief I'm still alive." A faint smile ghosted across her lips before vanishing. "We must relocate. The boarders will trace us." "Great," Noah muttered. "Where to next? Preferably somewhere with less gunfire." Before she could answer, the hatch behind them rattled. The muffled thud of boots approached, growing louder by the second. Lyra's eyes sharpened. "They found us." Noah's pulse spiked as she drew a slender, curved device from beneath her belt. A Zorethian plasma blade, humming faintly with stored energy. He held up his hands. "Okay, time out. I'm an engineer, not a fighter. My greatest combat achievement is reprogramming a coffee dispenser to serve double shots." Lyra handed him a small, glowing orb. "Emergency neural disruptor. Aim at their optics. It will disable vision for 5 seconds." 5 seconds? What am I supposed to do after that? "Offer them decoff." She stepped forward, blade igniting with a quiet hiss of blue plasma. "I will handle the rest." The hatch exploded inward with a shower of sparks. Masked raiders stormed in, weapons raised, voices barking commands in a language Noah didn't recognize. His grip tightened around the disruptor, his mind racing. Lyra moved like liquid fire, her blade slicing through the attacker's weapons with surgical precision. Sparks erupted, metal clanged against the deck, and the air filled with shouted warnings. Noah, heart pounding, activated the disruptor, hurling it into the squad's midst. The orb detonated with a pulse of blue light, and the raiders staggered, helmets flashing as their visors went dark. "Okay, that worked," Noah muttered, scrambling behind a support beam as Lyra wove through the chaos, blade flashing with eerie precision. Note to self, carry more of those. The last attacker dropped, groaning as his weapon clattered to the floor. Lyra stood over him, plasma blade retracting with a soft hiss. Noah exhaled slowly, stepping out from cover. His hand still shook, but he was upright, breathing, alive. "Efficient," Lyra noted, deactivating the holographic map. "We continue. Can't we just hide somewhere? Let the professionals handle this?" Her gaze softened, a rare crack in her formal demeanor. "They seek me. I will not endanger others by remaining passive." Noah swallowed hard, cursing his luck, his choices, and every life decision that led to this moment. But despite the fear, a small part of him, the part that had unwittingly invited the queen into his bed, couldn't abandon her now. "Fine," he muttered, checking the disruptor for remaining charge. "But when this is over, I'm filing the weirdest vacation request in fleet history." Lyra's faint smile returned, a fleeting glimmer in the tension. Agreed. They slipped deeper into the ship, shadows dancing along the walls, danger close behind. And for reasons beyond logic, Noah realized he wouldn't have chosen anywhere else to be. The blast doors groaned as another shockwave rattled the ship, sending sparks raining from the ceiling panels. Noah stumbled, clutching the wall for balance as Lyra calmly adjusted the plasma rifle in her grip, her golden hair somehow still pristine despite the chaos erupting around them. You're terrifyingly calm for someone whose ship is one hull breach away from becoming cosmic confetti, Noah muttered, forcing his legs to keep moving as they sprinted toward the command deck. Lyra's long ears twitched faintly, a subtle sign of tension beneath her controlled exterior. We will resolve this. You remain functional. That is satisfactory. Functional? I've had 3 near-death experiences, 2 anxiety attacks, and I think my left shoe is melted. But sure, I'm functional. They rounded a corner, nearly colliding with Commander Reyes and a squad of human officers, their expressions grim, weapons drawn. The commander's gaze narrowed the instant she saw Noah. "Bennett," Reyes barked, voice sharp over the alarms. "Explain why you're attached to the Queen like a defective thruster. Would you believe ancient alien bonding customs and deeply unfortunate timing?" Noah replied, dodging falling debris as the corridor shuddered again. Reyes didn't blink. "Unfortunately, yes." The group pressed forward, reaching the main command deck just as another wave of boarders attempted to breach the bulkhead. Lyra stepped ahead, raising her rifle with unnerving precision, firing bursts of concentrated plasma that sent the raiders scrambling. Tactical displays flickered to life around them, projecting the attacking vessel's position. Too close, its weapons fully charged, its hull bristling with stolen tech. "They're prepping their final assault," one officer warned. "Shields won't hold." Reyes turned to Lyra, expression grim. "Options." Lyra's gaze shifted to Noah. "The engineer possesses knowledge of the maintenance tunnels. There is a secondary access point to their vessel." Noah's stomach twisted. "Secondary access? Wait, you want me to sneak aboard the ship full of armed lunatics? That's not an option. That's a suicide note." "You excel under pressure," Lyra replied, deadpan. "Debatable," Noah muttered. But the plan was already forming in his head, despite every rational part of him screaming otherwise. 10 frantic minutes later, Noah found himself crawling through an access shaft, plasma disruptor in hand, wires tangled around his tool belt, and the distinct realization that his life choices had taken an alarming dive since meeting the alien queen. Lyra moved ahead with cat-like grace, leading them into the docking port. Their boots made no sound as they slipped aboard the enemy vessel, navigating dim corridors lined with unfamiliar tech. The ship's core pulsed with energy, a stolen Zerethian reactor, overcharged, unstable. "That's not regulation," Noah whispered, eyeing the crackling power conduits. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They've modified it. If we disrupt the stabilizers, their vessel becomes inoperable. Or explodes spectacularly," Noah added, just to cover all the cheerful outcomes. Together, they bypassed security panels, Lyra disabling enemy patrols with swift, silent strikes while Noah rewired the reactor controls, sweat dripping down his temple as warning lights flickered. 2 minutes to overload," he warned, fingers flying across the control interface. Alarms blared as the raiders discovered them, but it was too late. The reactor pulsed violently, power surging out of control. Lyra grabbed his wrist, pulling him back toward the access hatch. "Time to leave," she declared. Noah didn't argue. They escaped the vessel seconds before the core detonated, the shockwave rattling their ship but leaving the enemy crippled, their systems fried, their weapons offline. Back on the command deck, Reyes ordered immediate surrender. The remaining raiders detained, the threat neutralized. The crisis ended. Noah slumped against a console, lungs heaving, adrenaline still buzzing. Lyra approached, her expression softer than he'd ever seen it. "You exceeded statistical expectations." "Yeah," Noah panted. "I do that when I'm trying not to die." The crew's stares burned into him, whispers circulating, Rumors, jokes, admiration. His accidental bond with Lyra had turned into something real. Tangled in danger, awkward jokes, and terrifying close calls, but real nonetheless. Reyes approached, arms crossed. Well, Bennett, you've managed to entangle yourself with alien royalty, nearly die 3 times, and save the ship. Busy week, Noah replied weakly. Stay attached to her, Reyes added dryly. Seems to keep you alive. Lyra stepped closer, her long ears angling slightly. I informed you, I have no intention of sleeping apart. Noah met her gaze, warmth creeping into his chest despite the exhaustion. His life had been ordinary. Fixing conduits, dodging bureaucracy, coasting through the galaxy unnoticed. Now, he was bonded to an alien queen, tangled in political intrigue, and somehow he didn't want to go back. He straightened, a smirk tugging at his lips. All right, Your Majesty, guess you're stuck with me. Lyra's faint smile deepened, her hand brushing against his. Statistically acceptable.